Hey guys, Scott here. Usually I don't do sort of live watching of videos like this. I do that more on my stream. This is sort of a long, unedited format. But this is just too great an offense. I'm not going to take shit from a fucking robot. So today we're going to watch Iron Will isn't the best exhaustion perk in DBD. I made a video a while ago saying that it was the best exhaustion perk because at least for how I play and what, I go against, I do actually think it is. But we're going to hear what this man has to say. I've not actually watched this yet. I have no doubt this will be filled with heresy, lies, and slander. Let's let's just watch it. I want to see if I can refute whatever points he's going to make without any preparation, which will hopefully make my conviction stronger rather than having something pre-written like I'm sure he was reading from a script this entire video. He's looking down at the script right now, which is right here. Already just very, very weak. So let's see what we got.
Hello friends, this is Odds here in the flesh, and today I'm doing something that I wish I could do more often, which is to roast Scott John. He recently made a video called Why Iron Will is the best non-exhaustion perk for Survivor. Scott John.
What? This is okay. All right, first critique about your argument so far. Okay, this is very clearly a fast food type establishment here. And he very keenly is aware that I did work at Best Buy. The problem is, with his argument already, is that he's putting Best Buy stickers on a fast food chain stock image, which clearly is silly because Best Buy is a purveyor of electronics and sales of those types of things. We don't sell food or anything like that. So this is already off to a completely slanderous start, and it's best picture available. You fucker.
Called Why Iron Will is the best non-exhaustion perk for Survivor. And basically the 2 points of this video, if you've already watched it, I'll summarize it. If you don't plan on watching it, I'll bring you up to speed, is that the best perks are the exhaustion perks for survivors. They make distance, they buy you time, and that time can be used by your teammates very efficiently. But if you don't count those perks, Iron Will is actually the best perk. And I disagree with both of these things. Okay. Now, jokes aside, Scott makes very good points. Iron Will is an incredibly useful, versatile, and generally great perk to run. If you don't have it, anytime you're injured,
oh my god,
a lot of noise.
He's hacking my computer. I can't pause it.
Near you, the killer. If the killer's anyone.
Jesus, he's so powerful. Okay, so right now, what Otz is doing is a very, very good thing to do when you're having a debate with someone. You immediately acknowledge the strengths of your opposition's point. And I'm assuming that he's about to talk about the strengths of Iron Will. This is just classic good debating, so...
Or near you, they will hear you. Even if you crouch, which makes you a bit quieter, or go into a locker, which makes you somewhat quieter, they can still hear you if they're close enough. And that's bad for stealth. And it also has a lot of implications during a chase. If a killer loses sight of you because you go around the wall, they can still hear you. So they will know if you're hugging the wall, or if you're running away, because they'll hear you get quieter and quieter and quieter. Now, Iron Will makes you have no breathing or running or panting sounds whatsoever when you're injured. So if they don't see you, they have to guess. And this means that they cannot really afford to lose sight of you and try to do any fancy mind games, because if they don't realize it, you might go away very, very quickly. And
something to immediately take note here while he's talking about how good Iron Will is. Notice how any recorded footage Otz ever has, he's only actually playing with bots because, he has to be amongst his people. And that's why you have Meg Thomas bot, Jake Park bot. So that's why you have what you have going on in the background in the B-roll. So
by the time they realize, they'll have lost
strength of my argument.
Massive distance. Against the average killer, Iron Will is very good. Against some killers that track by sound a lot, and this includes nerves.
Okay, first of all, Iron Will is good against even amazing good killers. It is good against absolutely everyone. So I don't know about that average call. Because if you're just depriving someone of sound, it doesn't matter if you're the best survivor or killer in the world or the worst in the world, you still have no information on someone on the other side of a wall at that point. So I think it's good against everybody.
Spirit especially, Iron Will is an absolute constant. And with some of the patches that are happening soon, it actually will have even less counterplay.
Getting stronger, yeah.
So that should make Iron Will just the absolute best perk in the world. No, it doesn't. The thing about Iron Will that you have to realize is that Iron Will is an on or off perk. You chase a survivor for a little bit after you injure them, and you can figure out whether they have Iron Will or they do not. If they don't have Iron Will, that's it. You don't have to worry about it. If they do have Iron Will, you won't be able to play and chase it the exact same way. You'll have to be extra mindful, but that's about it. It doesn't really...
See, I think he minimized that. That's about it. That's a huge component to it. It sounds very small when you say, well, that's the only component. You have to chase people differently. That differently is actually massive, and I'll go into that more unless he expands upon that more now.
We have a lot more implications for the rest of the game. For that reason, I put this perk roughly around the 6th spot in the strongest survivor perks. Still amazing, considering that there's like 90 survivor perks.
Okay. So the only perks that could possibly fill here, we're gonna have Dead Hard. He's not gonna put life. He's gonna have Dead Hard and Sprint Burst in one of these. Dead Hard, Sprint Burst, Decisive Strike, Borrowed Time. Dead Hard, Sprint Burst, Decisive Strike, Borrowed Time. Adrenaline? Unbreakable? It's got. There's only like 7 good perks in the game. It's got to be one of those.
So it's still a really good one, but it's not the best. Now I do agree with Scott that some of the exhaustion perks are better than Iron Will. Personally, right now I am placing Dead Hard and Sprint Burst in the number 4 and number 5 spots. And I used to think that Sprint Burst was superior to Dead Hard.
I think that too.
I think it is. Objectively, I think Sprint Burst, when used correctly, is a really strong perk.
I agree. I do actually agree that Sprint Burst is stronger than Dead Hard. The problem is it requires a bit more coordination from your team. The reason Sprint Burst is better, especially in like higher level play, is because you can use your exhaustion to get to a generator when you know you're not in danger of being chased for a little while because someone can tell you where the killer is. So in that high level scenario, Sprint Burst is actually better because it ensures you're never in a dead zone no matter what. And you can still recover your exhaustion while you're on a gen when your teammates tell you it's safe to do so. That's why I think it's better.
You can avoid any dead zone. Go watch my video where I break down every perk.
Probably let him talk before.
It's a really powerful perk. But Dead Hard is just about as good and has a factor to it that I think is really important. Now, Dead Hard will let you correct for a mistake, will let you go for an extra loop. It also has iframes to it, which is really annoying to deal with as a killer. If you're playing Trapper, a survivor can Dead Hard through your traps. If you're playing Doctor, they can Dead Hard through your shock and not get madness. They can also Dead Hard through your blast and not get madness and scream.
Okay, who's dead harding through a blast? I get dead harding through a shock when you're at a pallet. Who's dead harding the 60-second cooldown? But no one's fucking doing that.
There are so many things that Dead Hard can avoid: Hunter's Hatchets, Deathslinger shots, etc. It makes it really strong.
I will agree that against killers with projectiles, Huntress and pretty much Deathslinger, I do think Dead Hard is better than Iron Will. I think Iron Will is more universally better, but yeah, if I'm playing Huntress and I'm going against someone with Dead Hard, it's fucking annoying. Because as soon as they get to a corner, they're not in any danger. They don't have to play the game of, am I gonna, dodge the hatchet or not? They just Dead Hard out of sight, and they're pretty safe. So that's very annoying. I agree with that at least.
But the thing about Dead Hard, and this is what makes the next top 3 perks also incredibly good, is that it works even when it's not there. I guarantee you, every time you chase a survivor that is injured and you have a lot of hours in this game, you're not gonna hit them right away. If you haven't seen them use an exhaustion.
That's true. So he's bringing up the point right now that Dead Hard gives you value even if the person does not have Dead Hard, because you sort of have to play differently. Like when you get up to in melee range of a survivor, like a good killer's never just going to immediately lunge. You're going to wait a second to see if they have Dead Hard or not, because it's almost impossible to just on reaction Dead Hard something, especially with latency. So you have to guess when the killer's going to swing, which means you have to do it early. So most good killers are just going to walk up to a survivor and just see what they do for a second and then Dead Hard. Now, some very good survivors can know that and be very patient and save their Dead Hard for like 2 seconds and then use it. But unless they're getting to something, it doesn't matter. They're still going to go down because the killer is typically not going to swing until they see that Dead Hard, or they're about to get to something. Like if they're about to get to like a pallet or a prompt or a window or something like that where they know that they're going to be locked in animation, basically the killer's going to get them into a point where their Dead Hard is irrelevant. In this scenario that he's talking about, where you get value out of it just by people thinking that you have it. But most of the time, what does that actually get you, right? You basically gain, another second of chase time? Because, instead of lunging, I'm going to run forward for another second or two and then hit you with a basically unreactable instant non-lunge attack. So, yes, it does, but it gives you such a tiny amount. like over the course of the game, that might add up to what, maybe like 15, 16 seconds, which is not nothing, I agree. But it's also not really huge. The only time I would say it is huge is if you were, again, playing a killer like Huntress, where you're holding a hatchet waiting for a dead hard, and the dead hard never comes because they don't even have dead hard. To be fair, a good killer should be able to figure out if you have dead hard or not. If they, drop off like hell and they don't go faster, they vault the window, they don't go faster, they didn't run faster at the start of the chase, they have dead hard. Everyone runs an exhaustion perk, and it's pretty easy to very quickly process of elimination whether or not someone actually has dead hard or not. But I do understand the point he's making. You do get some value out of it.
Perk already, you're always going to wait to see if they dead hard.
Yeah.
So the fact that this perk exists means that almost every killer out there will waste 1 extra second or one extra half second every time they deal with an injured survivor.
So what?
And this can sometimes be even more. I have sometimes assumed that survivors would use dead hard on a loop, and then they didn't use it. And then I wasted my time trying to be fancy and do a mind game. Because if they did use it, I needed to do that. So it is a perk that...
I don't really understand that argument very much, so I'm not going to respond to it.
that will make you doubt yourself even when it's not there. Because if this perk was patched out tomorrow, let's say that it just completely becomes disabled and no one can use it.
I just realized he's playing my fucking D&D music in the background.
Then anytime you had an
This is literally my Arcane Labyrinth theme that I made. What a fucker. All right.
injured survivor, you would hit them without hesitation. Right now, anytime you have an injured survivor, you need to consider that if you hit them, they could dead hard, and while you recover, they could make it to a window, they could make it to a pallet, they could make it to a certain spot where they're suddenly safe. So this perk has a deterrence factor to it. It makes killers hesitate. And this is what the next 3 perks also do.
Well, it sounds like an argument that he's making is that dead hard just gives you the ability to make the killer play differently when you're injured because they have to, assume that something is going to happen, right? But isn't that exactly what Iron Will does? When you're injured, the killer now has to play differently because they now don't have that information anymore. It's sort of the same argument, just kind of from a different angle. They both sort of give you value with no active input in any way. I think the argument he's making is that you don't even need dead hard to begin with, whereas with Iron Will, you still need that. But I think the amount of time that you would gain from having Iron Will in a chase is much greater than the half a second or second of hesitation that you would get just from someone waiting for a dead hard. So I think Iron Will actually comes out on top there if we're talking about that argument, because if you count the amount of distance I actually lose in a chase due to dead hard, it's way, way more than 1 or 2 seconds. And that's per tile. It adds up way faster than just a little bit of hesitation before a dead hard. So I think actually Iron Will kind of comes out on top in that particular argument.
And what I think makes them so strong, even more so than dead hard. In number 3, Unbreakable. In number 2, Decisive Strike. In number 1, Borrowed Time.
I mean,
these perks...
Look, no one is going to argue that every single perk in this image is extremely, extremely good. But let's see what he has to say.
Perks are even better than anything else because they condition the way the killers play even when they're not used. There is always the possibility of someone in your lobbies having Unbreakable and you will not know about it. There's no way to really know beforehand. There is also the possibility that there will be a Decisive, and there is also the possibility that there will be typically multiple borrowed times, and these perks are so great at what they do.
Okay, so let me talk about Unbreakable for a minute, because Unbreakable was the other option that I was actually going to have. If you guys watch me, and you'll know that I hate Unbreakable probably just as much as Iron Will, going against it as killer. The reason I put Iron Will above Unbreakable, though, is that Unbreakable, when it's used effectively, can single-handedly win the entire game for your team. It is one of the most significant events that can happen in a match, and that's something the killer, it's even hard to play around guessing that someone has Unbreakable. But the majority of the time, you're not getting an amazing clutch game-winning Unbreakable. Half the time, you don't even get to use it to begin with. The other half, it's just, you use it and, you save a little bit of time. You're not in a really good area, but no one can come save you. So the fact that the amount of times that you get a huge game-winning play out of Unbreakable is actually much smaller than not makes me think that Iron Will is a little bit better, because you can use Iron Will basically every single game. You're probably going to get injured every game. It's something you get value out of with every single game. With Unbreakable, you might not even get slugged to begin with, depending on the scenario that you're in. So, yes, I agree that Unbreakable can have a much more significant impact than Iron Will, but the chances of getting that significant impact are way, way less than Iron Will. But there, it just sort of comes down to opinion, right? I need to make this clear that whenever I make a video like saying Iron Will is the best exhaustion perk, or not exhaustion perk, you need to realize that this is my personal YouTube channel. I'm not declaring that as law. I'm just saying basically all these titles have the subtext of, in my opinion. Like, I really hope that's obvious. I don't think I have to explain that, but obviously I'm not declaring anything. I'm just saying, in my opinion, Iron Will is, that. So, but Unbreakable was very, very close for me. And there was like very, very wishy-washy on which one I wanted to do the video on. But the inconsistency of Unbreakable made it just a tiny, tiny bit lower for me.
Now, as a killer, it is actually a very efficient thing for you to do, especially near the end of the game, to start slugging survivors, which is to leave them on the ground and try to keep them all on the ground and maybe perhaps try to finish the game right there. So let's say there's 3 survivors left and the last gen is about to be done. You down one, you down another, and now you try to go for the third. And that way you don't have to waste time hooking. And since it's just all those 3 survivors, you win easily. Now, the fact that this perk exists, Unbreakable, completely changes that. If you leave a survivor on the ground for a little bit longer than usual, they will not need 30 plus seconds to recover and then get picked up. They can actually pick themselves up in a little over 20 seconds. So that means you can never leave people on the ground for too long with this perk and with the addition of We're Gonna Live Forever.
Something important to bring about Unbreakable is that Unbreakable's strength is in Survive with Friends. In solo queue, it's actually not even that great, in my opinion. The only time that Unbreakable is very, very strong is when it's in Survive with Friends. Because if you're in solo queue and you get downed, someone sees you downed and they go, okay, I gotta stop what I'm doing and go pick this guy up. And that's just how solo queue kind of goes. However, if you're in Survive with Friends, that person that thought they had to come save you can now just sit on the gen because, Timmy is saying, hey, don't pick me up, I have Unbreakable. And that is what gives you the insane amount of time efficiency. It's when you're aware that that person has Unbreakable. I wonder if solo queue players could actually have a symbol of I have Unbreakable, like doing circles, or then you wouldn't be recovering. I guess there's no real way to describe that. So yeah, I'll go back to my original statement that Unbreakable is only this incredibly strong in Survive with Friends, where you can maintain the efficiency on whatever everyone else is doing by not spending time going to pick somebody up. In solo queue, I would argue Iron Will is undoubtedly stronger than Unbreakable.
Which is a really, really fast pickup perk when people are down. Slugging is actually really, really risky. It could totally backfire to leave multiple survivors on the ground if even a single one of them has this perk. So this already forces killers to be mindful and to maybe not use one of the best strategies they have for the mid to end game, which is really, really powerful. If Unbreakable was taken out of the game, suddenly the way that killers deal with many situations would change completely.
I want to bring up another point. I think a lot of what he's about to say is a result of subjectivity in how we play the game, or how really anyone plays the game. Because I've noticed I don't really get Unbreakable that much, I don't get DS that much, and I pretty much never see borrowed time. So when I made this video, I'm talking about the experiences that I have in the game, because typically I don't really want to 4-man slug people. If you guys watch me, I don't try to tunnel people off the hook, and I don't hit people immediately off the hook. So already these 3 perks don't actually get immense value, at least from the way that I play killer. I don't really enjoy playing super sweaty or anything like that. If you guys watch my stream, I really do not enjoy that style. That's not to say I'm better than you for playing like that. When you buy the game, you can do whatever the fuck you want. I just personally don't find that much joy in just slaughtering the shit out of babies, by playing super sweaty every time, in hopes that one time I do get a good team where my sweat is justified. I just don't like doing that. So I think the argument he's about to really make for all these perks is that to a killer that's really trying to win, yes, it's very true. These things really dissuade you from doing the things you really need to do to be sweaty as a killer. So if we're coming from that side of the argument, I would agree that these perks are stronger than Iron Will. But here's where the subjectivity comes in. That it's typically not really how I play. So when I make a video about why I think it's, Iron Will is the best non-exhaustion perk, for me, I see the most value out of Iron Will, because no matter what I do, they're still going to get value from Iron Will. But if I don't tunnel off the hook or anything like that, Borrowed Time and Decisive Strike are not really going to do anything. So these two perks don't really do much for me. Unbreakable is the only one that could still situationally see some benefit, but even then, I don't try to slug 2-3 people at a time. I'm mostly playing pretty chill games. I don't play very sweaty, so even the amount of slugging, unless I'm playing like Oni or something like that, and I have to, even that is not going to see that much value. So I think, yeah, the argument he's making makes sense from a different point of view. And of course, all this is subjective, but I think I understand why he's saying this now. And it's just because it's not even that he plays like this either. It's not like Ops plays super sweaty or tunnels or anything like that. I think he's looking at more of like a, objective, I really want to win this game mindset, and I just don't have that mindset. So in that mindset, I would agree that these perks are better due to the way they had changed the way you actually have to play. But for me personally, these perks don't actually do much anymore, especially since they nerfed DS. I don't really get DS'd anymore. I think I've been DS'd like twice in the past week or two. Like, it just doesn't happen that much anymore. And I'm not changing my gameplay or anything like that. Even if everyone, it's not deterring me because I don't hit people off the hook and pick them back up anyway. That's not, like, the threat of DS, I don't care because I'm not even doing that to begin with, so none of that really matters to me. Same thing with Borrowed Time. When someone gets unhooked, I'm not hitting the guy who gets off the hook. I just don't do that. Even if Borrowed Time didn't exist, I still wouldn't do that. So these perks are getting not much value for me. But that's, I think, going to be the main difference between our video, and we might start being arguing about different things at this point now. But let's just see what else he has to say.
You didn't have to worry about this perk. But even more impactful than Unbreakable, perhaps, is Decisive Strike and Borrowed Time. Now, these two perks are both focused on doing basically the same thing, which is to protect the person that just got unhooked.
Exactly.
And this is really, really powerful. Killing a survivor off early is still, to this day, the most effective tactic available for killers.
So yeah, this confirms this is exactly the difference in our arguments now. We're approaching the viewpoint in two completely separate ways. He is approaching it as the, I'm trying to win no matter what. This is, the correct sweaty play to make because he's 100% correct. Killing a survivor early is without a doubt the best play you can make. Hands down, no one could ever argue that. You can't lose a 3v1 with 4 or 5 gens up. You just can't. So 100%, it's objectively the best play to tunnel someone off the hook and kill them if you know they don't have Decisive Strike. And that's why DS is a dissuader of that, because people are kind of scared to do that now, and that might make people that would normally try to do that not go for the person that just got unhooked. So it seems like we're arguing from different viewpoints at this point. And I'd say at this point, this discussion is basically over, right? Because we're not really coming from the same viewpoint, which means we're having arguments that are running parallel. They're not like intersecting with each other. And we're making two separate, completely fine arguments. For his side, I agree that if you're trying to win, these perks are objectively better than Iron Will. But for me, if I'm just playing and I don't really try to do these things anyway, I'm not seeing much value from these perks. So Iron Will actually has more value. So I think maybe the main problem here is that people take, for example, Otz's title as the objective truth or my title as the objective truth, when in reality, it's both subjective to the way that, we would play the game. So neither of us is right. These are all subjective things. These are all opinions. None of these perks are the best, but the best perk is whatever you think is the best. There's no official ranking or anything like that. So I think that is probably the main gist of it. I'll just watch the rest of the video anyway, just because I'm just curious what he has to say, but I think that pretty much settles it.
A long mile. If you kill a survivor off very early into the match, that's typically a death sentence for everyone else, because their efficiency and your ability to apply pressure to them just completely switch, and it's just way too powerful. These are the two perks that prevent you from doing that effectively. If you did not have Borrowed Time or Decisive Strike, you would never really have to worry about anything. Anytime someone was unhooked, if they were vulnerable, and they typically are because they are just freshly unhooked and injured, you would just, without a question, go for that person, down them, then hook them again, and if it's already their second hook, they would be dead. Now, Decisive Strike is not as powerful as it used to be. It doesn't allow you to be unhooked and do gens, but it's still very, very powerful. You can open exit gates. You can find the hatch. You can get your...
in efforts, I didn't realize this video. I was like only halfway done with this. I think we can end the discussion there. That we are just approaching this from different perspectives. The way that you play the game is basically the sole determining factor in which perks you think are the best. And Otz, I suppose, is viewing this from more a competitive, I want to win scenario. I'm viewing it from more of a personal, this is how I play scenario. So I think you could argue that he is taking the more objective route because objectively, I suppose you would want to say if you were ranking things which are the best, you would have to take them from a I'm trying to win as sweaty as possible metric, right? So if we're taking it from that perspective, I would have to concede that he is correct, that Iron Will is not the best non-exhaustion perk. But from the perspective of how I play the game, he doesn't really get to determine that because it's just what I think is the best. So this really comes down to subjectivity versus objectivity. And I don't think really either of us is correct. But I will say in terms of viewing things as objectively as possible, he is probably more correct than I am because of the way that I play the game, and expecting everyone to play the game like nice like me is stupid. So, and even then, I don't always play nice, but trying to play like that is kind of stupid. So I will actually have to concede that objectively he is more correct than I am. But none of this actually matters because he's a fucking robot and he has no human emotions. So none of this shit fucking matters.